Welcome to Outreach Programming. I'm Mary Gerasi, and today's guest is filmmaker Renee Warmack. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Mary. Thanks for having me.
And you've had an amazing journey making a half-hour film called 10 at the Top.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. You're getting great reviews. You've had a premiere. Where did it start? How did you start with this idea, and where did you go? We're going to explore that today. So how did this come to you, and what is it?
Well, when I was finishing up my master's degree at the University of South Florida in public administration, I just made this observation that there was an unprecedented number of women at the helm, at the top of government institutions in the Hillsborough County, Tampa Bay area. And when it dawned on me, I thought, something's got to be done about this. A film, a book, or has there been newspaper articles written, anything? And nothing had been done that I could find. I talked to Doris Weatherford, who's a local historian and women's expert, and she said, no, Renee, I don't think there's anything been done. You're right, it is an incredible time for the area. So I got this idea that I wanted to produce a film. And I set a goal that I wanted to premiere it March 2007, National Women's History Month, and that I wanted it to premiere on WEDU, which is our West Coast affiliate for PBS. I wanted to shoot it in high definition, and I actually wanted to dedicate it to my grandmother, who had passed away right around that time in March 2006. So I did it.
Great. Now, you had all these expectations, all these ideas, and all these thoughts. That was unreality. What was the reality check like for you? I mean, you had this vision. What was it like getting to that vision? Because it was probably nothing that you ever expected.
Right. Well, I had no funding. I had no knowledge of how to produce a film. And I was working full time. So I really did not know how I was going to learn and actually carry out this project. So what I started doing was networking and talking to all the people that I knew. I'm born and raised in Tampa, and I have a public relations and public administration background, and so the people were amazing. When you have a good idea, I think this film demonstrates people will support you and they'll get behind it.
So was it anything like you expected? Tell me the hardest part, and then we'll go back to what the easiest part, what the most amazing part was. So how difficult was this? Or was it?
It was very difficult. Not a lot of sleep, working full time and working on emailing. I was promoting the film the whole entire year while I was producing it. So I was flying the plane while building the plane for a whole year, learning how to produce it and doing it.
Do you always do things the hard way?
I tend to.
Okay, that's good. So do I. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I encourage that.
And I like it, very challenging things too.
So what was the hardest thing? Just assembling it?
I think juggling everything and meeting timelines. And it was my own timeline, really. I said I wanted it to premiere National Women's History Month. I made that up. But what really happened that put major pressure on me, but again, it's what I wanted, is I wanted WEDU to say, yes, we will air it. Person who has never produced a film in your life. And finally, after showing footage, I had incredible editors and director of photography, men who locally are just incredible, and
who was
nationally.
Your DP?
Actually,
let's give them a little plug.
I will.
I've been a photographer for most of my career in the news business,
Yeah.
so they need a little plug.
They do, and I will say this was a film about women, but the men that helped me on this film were very. They didn't self-promote. They taught me, they mentored me in how to produce films. And who are these guys?
Let's give them a plug.
Rob Allen with Red Lizard Films. It was the director of photography. He brought the lighting and sound folks. And the editors is Sawmill Production is the company. It's right down the street from here. And it's Greg Metcalf and his assistant Beth Schmidt. And so the learning that I got from them, of course, I'm still paying. I'm in quite a bit of debt trying to pay off, but it was worth it. I'd do it again.
Yeah, everything I know about the film and television industry I learned from men. My dad was a photojournalist. He taught me reel-to-reel recording. So it's nice that the gentrification of things stops and that these men were so supportive on this adventure. And it's really nice of you to honor them. It's very, very...
I can't say enough about them.
So the hardest part was you gave yourself a deadline, then you wanted to what? Shoot yourself in the foot?
Well, when WEDU finally said yes, I then had what's called an air date. And that date, I needed to get everything done by that time. You know, if it was just, I had to adjust. If it turned out April, I could have said, okay, well, I'm not going to do it in National Women's History Month. That's my idea anyway. Who cares? Well, when I got the air date, I'm like, oh, this is my opportunity. This was the big thing I wanted to do, to get it disseminated, this phenomenon that's happening in Hillsborough County, Tampa, my hometown. And so that pressure of really doing final edits, gathering what's called B-roll, which is all that extra stuff you put in of pictures, and I have pictures.
I know what that is. I
Yeah.
hope the audience knows how hard that is. Every shot you're going to see had to be lit, had to have audio, it had to have somebody asking a question, it had to follow through.
I tracked down pictures of these women when they were little. There's pictures of their family. There's pictures of some of them at work. So all that, you have to go research it, and you have to get the footage, and you have to give it to your editor, tell them where to put it and what your preferences are, and actually review it, give feedback again, review and feedback, and it's a very arduous process.
How many hours do you think you put into this movie?
Oh, I cannot even
Just
imagine.
throw it out there. What do you think?
Oh, gosh.
Thousands?
Thousands, absolutely.
Great.
Yes.
Wow. Phenomenal. So you just came up with an amazing idea, and you tenaciously charged ahead, having no idea what you're doing, and did it. That unto itself is a great story.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're here to share that story.
Thank you.
We bring a lot of filmmakers to public access every day, people who would love to be in your shoes, producing films and videos, and especially getting on WEDU PBS. That's certainly a feather in your cap. It's an amazing station, very good production values.
Thank you.
And we're glad that you were so kind to air it on our channel. We're going to be watching Renee's film as soon as we're done with this pre-interview, so you got an idea of her commitment, her tenacity, and her amazing journey into becoming a filmmaker. I love this story. I'm so glad you're here.
Great. Thank you.
So let's get into, that's the hard part. Let's get into, out of all the things you did to make this movie, what was the caveat?
This wasn't just a film to me. This was about connecting these women with the girls in the community. And what I did was I used the Ophelia Project girls for a focus group prior to actually asking the questions of these women. And I think connecting them was really important to me. Also, Seminole Heights Elementary School in Tampa, I went and actually interviewed some of those girls. There's 4 of them that actually appear in the film, and I asked them what they want to be when they grow up. But the thing that I think was the ultimate for me was my premiere, which I had at the Centro Asturiano. I wanted to do it at a historic building in Tampa. And when I premiered the film, prior to it showing on EDU, I had over 100 people there. 5 out of 10 of the women came, and the 4 little girls from Seminole Heights came, and they got to meet these women. And I believe the vision that I had behind this was really epitomized by that event. The connection of people who can meet the leaders and the folks that are in roles to which they aspire. And that was a big part of my vision, was giving hope to people who may not realize, young girls, that you can be mayor. You can be the county administrator. You can be the public defender. It is possible now for women.
I think because of movies like this and groups like Ophelia Project and your work that I meet more girls. I also did some work with Ophelia Project, and I meet these young women, and they have no qualms about being the president of the United States. Right. I'm going to run my own company. They're savvy. They're sharp. I mean, when we were a little tenuous, like, well, I want to be a nurse instead of I want to be a doctor. Right. So I think films like this and the encouragement and the ability to read a paper and say, my mayor is a woman. Right. The person running this town, Pat Bean, is a woman. So.
And I think also the part of the vision that I had was interviewing these women. It actually was me getting from them the wisdom and knowledge of how they got there. And I thought, we have this phenomenon. How incredible would it be to can and capture what they did to climb to these high levels in public service? Put it on film.
Great. Did you find some common thread in each one of these women that propelled them to the top? What was that thread?
That propelled them to the top. I guess there was a common thread that really rang true for me was you don't have to have a blueprint day that you graduate from high school to know exactly what you want to be, you know, where you want to go, and that it's okay, just study hard, okay, do the right thing, have good values, and you may not know, and a lot of these women didn't know they were going to end up in these positions, okay, and it's okay. So I think a lot of kids put pressure on themselves that you got to know immediately exactly what you want to do. You know, you've got to have the skills, you've got to get the education, you need to be disciplined and, you know, be a responsible person. But I think that some people may think, oh yeah, you know, Pam Iorio when she was young knew she was going to be mayor, and, you know, and she didn't know. I mean, she'll say in the film, you know, I didn't know that I could be mayor. I didn't anticipate being mayor. She ran for the Board of County Commissioners seat when she was in her 20s.
Sure.
She had no savings. You know, she just went for it. The other thread, I think, is to take risk. You can take risk. Don't be so afraid. You know, jump and really go for it, and believe in yourself.
So those were the common threads you seem to find through.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good. I like that, to be able to disseminate all that information and package it a bit and say,
Right.
take your challenges, don't be too rigid on yourself, you know, think outside the box, can you say? They all think
Absolutely.
outside the box?
They did. And in terms of being women, I believe that they really experienced, many of them, discrimination, and some of them speak of that, because I asked them what obstacles did they face because they are a woman.
Sure.
And you know, the way they talk about it is, yes, these things happen, but here's how I navigated it. Here's how I excelled.
Yeah.
Here's how I got past it. I think that's important for young girls to hear, is, you know, you may have some of this stuff happen, but it, you know, if you can get past it, and you know, some of it is, if you represent yourself in a way that is very confident and you ignore some of it, sometimes that's part of the key to just moving forward.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not. And adversity, you know, Nietzsche said it best, that which does not kill me makes me stronger.
That's right. That's right.
And I'm sure each one of these women were forged in steel because of sexual discrimination, harassment, whatever it is. Not that anybody should have that, but we do. We do all encounter it, no matter where, whether it's in a restaurant or a bar setting or with a partner, whatever, or in the workplace. So being tenacious and strong enough to rise above it.
Pat Frank, clerk of the circuit court, talks about the fact that when she went to Georgetown, the college of the law school there, she's the first woman to attend and graduate from there. The professor, when she got there, told her, we have never had a woman here, and we're not going to have one now.
Yeah.
She succeeded.
Well, that's what I mean. It sounds like they had those hits against them, and because of that, they were able to rise above it. I mean, learning to deal with adversity instead of running from it.
That's right. Yes.
You know, don't be girly.
Right.
Be a woman, right?
That's right.
Well, I don't think we have much else to explore in this conversation, and I'm looking forward to seeing the movie, and I'm sure the audience is as well.
Right.
Is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with, the last bit of information, your feelings, your assessment of your project? What would you like to say?
Well, if you're thinking about producing a film and you've never done it before, you can do it. There are resources in Tampa and folks that can help you get it done. The Film Commission gave me some information and resources to help me get started, and there's also the Education Channel. There's classes here that are produced by Community Tampa Bay, and you can learn, and it seems like a very daunting task, but you can do it. Also, the Independence Film Festival is coming up in September, and my film has been accepted by the festival.
Congratulations, and you
you.
got another acceptance. Where's your second one?
Yes, I actually have two other ones. The Ybor Festival of the Moving Image was in April, and my film was screened there and accepted. And the Central Florida Film Festival is taking place in a couple months, and it just got accepted there.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is this the last movie we're going to see for you? Is this your new career, or have you thought about it yet?
I've thought about it, and I have the bug. I want to produce more films, so I'm very interested in
Any
that.
idea what your second one's going to be yet?
Maybe something along the lines of labor issues and work-related issues. There's a real decline in unions nationally and worker rights. I think that'd be a very interesting topic. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks for being on the show.
Okay.
And thanks for watching. And now we're going to go to Renee's film, 10 at the Top. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Thank you for watching.
In 2007, at the start of the new millennium, 10 trailblazing women have risen to great prominence as top leaders of government institutions in the Tampa Bay area. Collectively, these 10 women set the direction of our city and county, promote the welfare of our children, help strengthen our economy, shape our educational and court system, and protect our national security. At no other time in history have so many women served in these key roles that are traditionally held by men, making this a moment worth noticing.
I guess I didn't even pay attention to it until the last maybe 3 or 4 people were appointed to their position. And then I thought, well, many of us have lived in this community for decades, and we have worked in this community for decades, and that we've worked our way to the top.
It's about time, isn't it? But it is exciting because I think the Tampa Bay area is unique in that regard.
Only 3 of these positions have previously been held by women. Postmaster Elizabeth Barnard, Mayor of Tampa Sandy Friedman, and University of South Florida President Betty Castor.
I benefited greatly from the women who came before me because women like Betty Castor and Fran Davin had done such a great job on the county commission that when the voters looked at me, and I was a very young woman at the time, I was first elected when I was 26, I think they were willing to take that chance on me.
Betty's election to the county commission in 1972 was a revolution, not just because she was a woman, but because it was the end of the good old boy system of politics in Florida and heralded the newcomers of the post-World War II era and a complete revolution in the way Tampa viewed itself as a city.
Certainly Helen Gordon Davis and Pat Frank set that groundwork for us. They taught, I think, the public as a whole that women could raise the family, keep marriage intact, do a good job in the elected position.
When I started out, there was only one woman who was on the school board, one woman who'd been elected to the House of Representatives, and we were oddities. I look back at some of the pictures of what I wore during those days, and we tried to look like our counterparts, the men. But we didn't want to wear ties, so we wore these tremendous bows around our necks. It looks ridiculous now. But, you know, it was a symbol of the time. We were trying to assimilate, but also we were recognizing that we were different, and we were proud of that. And hopefully the work that we did in the earlier days paved the way for other people.
A roadmap to success can be difficult to find, but knowing the paths of successful women can help remove obstacles for young girls.
I went to my boss that day and I said, Bill, I want you to know that I am resigning and I'm going to run for the county commission. I think he thought I was just completely out of it. He probably thought this person is a nut. You know, he just looked at me in total disbelief. I had no savings. I had this job, but it, you know, just paid my bills. I lived on my own. I did not live with my parents or anything. I was young, but, you know, I had my own apartment, the whole deal. And now that was a risk. And people would say, well, Pam, what are you going to do if you lose this county commission race? You know, you're 25, you have no job, you don't have any savings. And I said, well, I'm not going to lose.
I really never thought in Hillsborough County that I would be the superintendent. But one of the things that helped me so much was I had had the opportunity to be in a number of different leadership positions.
Well, actually, I started out as a school board member. I was very interested in schools because I was a mother and I had children in public schools, and I saw the quality was not what I wanted it to be.
When I was very young, I said, you know, I want a career in public life. I think that's how I can make a difference. Now, reaching the conclusion that I could be mayor, I mean, I would never have thought, I mean, a million years when I first started in politics, that I would be mayor of the city of Tampa.
So I initially enrolled at the Teachers College through it was a junior college program at that time. My goal was to leave there after 2 years, to go to the university, then ultimately to pursue a degree in medicine. But after 2 years at the Teachers College, I became enamored with education, and I decided that that was what I wanted. That would be my goal in life, to pursue that career, and that's how I got in education.
By 7th grade, I was actually the head of a little project for children with severe developmental disabilities. I was allowed to go tutor kids with developmental disabilities, and I really knew I was in a place that I wanted to be. It felt right, and it felt like the thing that I wanted to really try and build my life around. And really from that point on, I found ways to work with kids.
Persevering in the face of obstacles is the mark of a great leader.
I'm going to move from home where it was nice and safe, and I'm going to go to live in Texas, and I'm going to go to law school, to a place where when they would introduce you to law school, they would tell you, there's 3 of you sitting together. Look to your left and look to your right, and lawyers will all tell you the story, because 2 of you won't be there.
Because I've worked hard, worked very hard. You know, you work nights. I've worked nights for 9, 10 years, raised a family, go to school at the same time.
I was the first person in my family to go to college. School was not highly valued by everybody in my family. My mother was very encouraging, and the guidance counselors back in those days really didn't help a whole lot. They certainly didn't help girls.
I've experienced many obstacles, not only because in my career, not only because I'm a woman, but also because I'm a member of a minority group. But the specific obstacles that I faced as a woman had more to do with the fact that I have always been involved in a primarily male-dominated field.
And I'll have the stature that men have, so they don't take you seriously sometimes until they find out who you are, but it's just something that I think women have to overcome.
All the guys who were working in management positions for the county, or at least many of them, threw money into a pool to see how long I'd last. And all of that is very funny now because, of course, all of them are gone, and I'm still here.
They told me I needed to stand there and, you know, like this when I supervised. I got a kick out of that. They told me I smiled too much. I still talk about that. So, that's what you need to do. You need to smile and treat people right.
I would make a suggestion, and it would just go above everybody's head, and it would not be considered until a man made the same suggestion, although using very different words. And then it would dawn on me that was my suggestion that was not reacted to. I could have used that as a debilitating kind of experience, but that just made me more determined to make sure that my voice would be heard.
There was a professor who told me that I'd never make it through his class because he understood that I was in the law school, and he said, "We haven't had a woman here since 1789. We're not having one now."
When I went to law school, there were only, in my class, there were only a couple of women at the time. It was when women were starting to break into the field. Just like when I came back home to practice criminal defense law, very few people would say, as a woman, you're going to do what? You're going to represent people that are in the jail, you're going to go to the jail, you're going to be around people that are violent. And so it was that breaking time. And what I had was no fear.
And he said, well, I just want you to know, I hope this doesn't hurt your feelings, but you're really not faculty material. And I said, well, you know what? I don't think you know if I'm faculty material or not. What I wanted to do was cry, but I didn't. And ultimately, I was his boss.
Women leaders have greatly influenced the workplace in America, helping to shape the culture and the structure of many organizations.
What has come from women in leadership positions is a much better discussion of the true issues that impact quality of life, the true responsibilities, that it's okay to care. It's okay to be empathetic. It's okay to be compassionate.
Women not only have a skill set and an attitudinal basis that is different from men's, men have adopted that in the last half of the 20th century. Men have come to see more and more that you don't manage effectively by being hierarchical, by being patriarchal, but that teamwork is necessary.
There's sometimes been an image that perhaps a woman is not the choice because she's either too assertive or not assertive enough. There's never seems to be an agreement on what the level is of aggressiveness that a woman has.
As women, we try to be everything to everybody, I think. Sometimes to our own detriment, physically or emotionally. And I think we all have to remember that in order for us to be successful, in order for us to be capable of doing what we want to do and achieve the things that we want to achieve, we have to take care of ourselves.
The values and interests of young girls are often discovered in their early years.
My dad passed away when I was about 18 months old. My brother was about 6 months old. My mom, who thought that she was going to stay at home and raise 2 children, all of a sudden found herself having to go out and make a living. My grandmother came to live with us, and until her death, when I was 13 years old, my grandmother assisted my mother in raising us.
Well, I came from a fairly impoverished background in terms of wealth. Financial wealth, but I came from a very rich background in terms of culture and family support and aspirations.
When I was growing up, you didn't pay attention to those things. You didn't know that you didn't have money. You didn't know that you were eating beans and franks because you didn't have money.
I grew up in South Carolina. We weren't wealthy by any means, but I never had to worry about having a meal.
I grew up in a family of 4. I had 3 older brothers. I was the youngest and the only girl. I believe that helped develop my personality. I don't know of anybody that would have 3 older brothers who were dominating and wanted me to do things their way, that wouldn't have developed some thick skin.
When I was a little girl, my goal was to get 1 year of college. And I really didn't pursue a specific goal, but my mother had always told us as young children that she had 1 year of college, and we couldn't tell her anything until we got 1 year of college.
My mother worked full-time, and my brothers and I, when we came home from school, all had chores to do, and my mother would call from the office, and she'd ask, have you done what you were supposed to do? And when she got home, it better be done.
My mother died when I was 2. My father was a hard-working individual. He valued an education because he didn't have one himself. He was only educated to the 6th grade. And he reminded me, about how hard it is to work and be successful. There were some very basic lessons that he told me. One was get a good education, take care of your teeth, and buy expensive shoes. I've done all 3.
My father was not a formally educated man, but he was a very, very bright man. He was always very encouraging of all of his children. From as long as I can remember, he always said that all of his children would go to college and get a degree, and we all did.
I came from a blue-collar family where going to school wasn't important at the time. When you come from families like that, you get married, have children, go to work.
We were a family that always discussed issues. The Vietnam War was raging, civil rights at the forefront. My father was a college professor, so that we were always on campus, and back then USF, very different than today. And during the Vietnam War, there was a lot of student protests and activism back then.
I was raised in a convent because I was a young girl during World War II, and my father said, get thee to a nunnery, because Fort Lauderdale was just teeming with the Navy. And I think the nuns were very good in forming my structure and my ethics.
I've always wanted to work. I've always worked. I started babysitting when I was 13, that kind of thing. I always wanted to work and get my own car and be independent. Mom always raised me like that.
Finding comfort and guidance from a caring adult can help provide direction and make the road to success easier.
Beth Shields was just an icon, I think, in the education community in Tampa, and she became a mentor for me. She was the first person that I worked for in Hillsborough County. She hired me. I'll never forget when I came in to interview, there wasn't anything at a school that she, as the principal, wouldn't do. And I walked in for an interview, and I was interviewed in the book room, and she had her jeans on and a sweatshirt, and she was cleaning out the book room. Now, this is the principal of the school. In terms of my leadership, I definitely have tried to emulate the kinds of values and certainly the leadership skills that I saw in her.
Well, my mother was my primary mentor, and the reason for that being, as I mentioned earlier, she had 1 year of college, but she was a homemaker. She was in a wheelchair from the time I was 4 years old. But she was actually not only a mentor for me, but she was a mentor for everybody in our community. She knew, she said, that our future was not as homemakers. And I've often said that. There's nothing wrong with being a homemaker. But my mother instilled in us at a very early age that our role was to be in the work world, and that we were to be self-supporting. If ultimately we chose to be homemakers, that was fine, but she felt it was very important for us to have our own careers and to be self-sufficient.
As far as mentors, you know, my district manager, he's pushed me. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him.
Fran Davin, who as a young person coming out of college and coming back to Tampa and saying, hey, I want to be active in politics, I'm interested. She really took me under her wing. She's a great friend. She's been a mentor. She's been just a very solid person, a person of great integrity, who's always given me great advice over the years.
Yvonne Polo, who just retired from the clerk's office recently, and I was fortunate enough to talk her into coming to work for me. And she, again, was a mentor and a strong strength in my life. Yvonne was my supervisor, and what she lent to me during the time period that I was starting to work was recognizing how important all jobs are within an organization. Doesn't really matter where you are. She never treated me as if she were my supervisor. What she did was work side by side with me. And in doing that, she could carry me in that development process.
The county administrator left, and a new county administrator came on by the name of Pico Floyd. He was definitely one that I considered a mentor. He's the one, in fact, that probably catapulted me up to where I am today, because I was hired as Human Resources Director, and I went from running a department with a budget of about $250,000 and 8 employees to running a group of departments that probably the budget was around $40 million, and I had 800 and some employees just overnight. And I really owe that to him.
Her name is Colleen Beavis, and I met her because she was trying to start a campaign to get something called the Children's Board created. Through the course of the next 10 years, she became my major mentor. The most important thing that she said to me is, don't forget why we're here. Don't take your eyes off of the goal. And that when people start to get hung up on power or territory or personal agendas, that all you need to do is say, I'd like to remind everybody that we're all here for the same reason. We're all here for the kids.
Mentoring is something that is an everyday process that you want to help as many people as you can to benefit from what you have learned.
Mentorship has been maybe the most important thing that's happened to me in my whole life. Education is important, but the support and guidance of people along the way has been the thing that's made a difference in my career, absolutely, positively.
If you're going to be a mentor to somebody, that means that you've also got to set a standard for yourself. You can't just use words to try to tell somebody what's good for them. You have to demonstrate that you can be successful with certain qualities.
Mentors have to be caring individuals, individuals who are willing to look beyond what you see on the surface, to see potential in all human beings, regardless of where they may be at any point in life, and being willing to listen, to hear what their ideas are, and to provide them with the best advice that you can to help them to clarify their goals, to set small goals, and then to be able to recognize progress as they achieve it.
In terms of mentoring, there are different ways that you mentor. You can have a mentor that you meet with every week, and some people do that.
Listening to the wise counsel of others can help make the future more promising.
We live in a world today where you can embark on a whole series of adventures, but you've got to make those opportunities for yourself. And you've got to do something in life that you love. You go down one path and that's not the right path, you change and you go down another path.
I would encourage any young person starting out in a professional career to recognize that you're going to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect, so you're going to make them. The best way to deal with those is to be honest about it, acknowledge it, apologize for it, and have a plan to fix it.
For a young girl thinking about what they would do if they were given opportunities and things weren't going right, the one thing you can't get is so discouraged that you don't move forward. Because the real challenge comes in not getting caught in the negative, but feeling like, hey, okay, it wasn't a good scene, it's not the end of the world, I can move forward, and I can still be really successful.
Get the very best education that you can. Learn, take every opportunity to learn as much as you can, to read books, read newspapers, read articles, read everything that you can and gain as much knowledge as you can.
That's what's important. It's not your looks and popularity and things like that. Focus on school and your studies.
You've got to know how to write. You've got to know how to express yourself. You've got to be technically proficient. You can't just float by without the real substance.
We have kids that come to work here in the summer and people say, gosh, that young? And I go, yes, because you know what? I want them to see what it's like to work in a law office. I want them to see what it's like to be in the court system. I want them to see what it's like to be interacting with police officers. Once they see it, they can determine if whether or not that really is going to meet their needs.
Through your life, you will know the right thing to do. Your heart will tell you the right thing to do for yourself.
There is no substitute for hard work. There is no substitute for being a person of strong character and strong values.
You have values and principles that you got to live by. And if you can't accept what's happening around you because of those values and principles, you either have to stand up for what you believe or you sacrifice a part of yourself.
Life is just a flash. And at the end of your day, you don't want to say, I never took any risk. I never, reached for the stars.
I believe that you have to make decisions regarding, the field or the career that you're going to go into based on what you really like. I don't think that money is the thing that makes people happy.
It is important that women take time to recognize the strides they've made in the past to better understand where they want to go in the future.
We have a very powerful history, so the women who are taking charge now know that. They know what happened in the 70s. But it's the younger ones who are out there in the workforce, and they don't see discrimination so blatant that don't realize that they have a duty to pick up and carry on and do these things.
The legislature actually passed a bill when Lawton Chiles was governor that included teaching women's history along with Holocaust history and African American history and so forth. But with the FCAT, that legislation has been almost completely ignored. And teachers don't know what to teach.
We still haven't cracked those very top executive positions in any great numbers. And still, I'm sure that if you look statistically at corporate heads, Fortune 500, for example, you'd still find very few women at the very top. That still will take some time, which is why I think it's so significant that here in the Tampa Bay area, we're such leaders in this regard.
These historical milestones must be shared with our children to ensure that they understand the challenges women have faced, the progress they have made, and the promise the future holds.
The old days, and they were the old days, where women had very few options available to them. They were either nurses, school teachers, or some kind of secretary. That's not our world today. Our world is a wide open book of many, many chapters that you can open up and explore. But you've got to create your own opportunities.
We have a tremendous opportunity to make a difference. Those of us, the women who are in leadership roles here in Hillsborough County, we have an opportunity to make sure that more young women look upon leadership roles as opportunities to pursue.
Do any of you know any of these women in these pictures at all?
I know the mayor.
The mayor? How do you know the mayor?
I was on TV with her before. My grandmother, she used to work at a park with a lot of children, and they were building a fire station there, and all the kids got to be on TV with them, and we were digging with gold shells.
Did you get to talk to her at all?
Mm-hmm.
What'd you talk to her about?
I said, is it hard to take care of the city of Tampa?
What'd she say?
She said, yeah.
Young women need to see women in executive positions. I can see by the look in their eyes many times when they see me, and they just think it's so neat that there's a woman mayor, and I want them to see that they can be mayor one day too. But if we have a woman one day who's a great leader, and she becomes President of the United States, that will do more to further the hopes and dreams and aspirations of young girls throughout this country than anything else. That will be the ultimate role model. And I do hope that in my lifetime that happens one day. I truly do. It would be something I'd be very proud of.
I love the idea of taking these great women leaders and putting them out there so that they can mentor from afar to the younger ones who are coming up next.
I think it sends a message to women, young women who are just trying to get started, that it is possible now. When you look around and you see the 10 that you're featuring, I mean, it's amazing to me.
It's important to point out to girls now that we have this unique point in time where we have women as head of top institutions.
I think that one of the things that the 10 women that we've been referring to can probably do and do better is that we probably should take the time out of our extremely busy lives to come together once in a while and talk about those that laid the groundwork for us and how can we better lay the groundwork for the future.
You ever think about what you want to do when you grow up?
A doctor, a teacher, a nurse, and a teacher. Professional athlete.
Do you think that you can be whatever you want to be?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Because it's a free country.
Why do you think you could be a teacher?
I could work hard. You can't let boys stop you what you're going to do and do good.
You think you can do anything you want to do in life? You do? Why do you think that?
Because my dad said no matter what, if anyone's trying to stop you, you can still work hard and get your degree and stuff.
Did you know verbal abuse damages a child for a lifetime?
I heard that children who are verbally abused grow up to abuse their own children.
Someone told me that verbal abuse is the gateway to physical and sexual abuse.
When you verbally abuse a family member, you damage the entire family.
What's wrong with you? Can't you do anything? Are you stupid? I don't need any woman telling me what to do. You listen to me. Shut up. Of course he called me stupid.
You would probably be shocked if you heard this coming from children playing house.
And I just asked you to clean your room. Your sister cleaned her room. What are you, stupid? Shut up, woman. You understand me? I run the
So, why aren't we shocked when we hear adults saying things like this?
Sadly, unlike physical abuse, with verbal abuse, sometimes people don't recognize that it is in fact abusive behavior, that it's unwarranted behavior, and that it's damaging behavior.
We normalize it. Society normalizes it.
Verbal abuse plays a major part in the cycle of violence. Continuous verbal battering and berating slowly chips away at a person's self-esteem.
Self-esteem tells us that we are a human being and that we deserve to be treated in certain ways, certain basic ways, with kindness and with respect and with gentleness and with passion.
According to Dr. Kathleen Heidi, the loss of self-esteem sets up a person for a lifetime of poor choices.
So they may start to numb these bad feelings with food, with alcohol, with drugs. So in a way what they're doing is using substances to self-medicate.
No matter how desensitized our society has become to the damaging effects of verbal abuse on a child or on a family member, the long-term results can be debilitating.
They have low-end jobs, they have relationship addiction where they have serial monogamy and maybe not monogamy. It's just unsuccessful. Their life is unsuccessful.
They may in addition seek out relationships, not on a deliberate level, but of people who reinforce that kind of treatment. And so it can perpetuate an abusive cycle.
If the verbal abuse escalates and a child witnesses physical violence against a parent, the statistics are high that they, in return, will become abusers or will be abused.
Either they'll become the perpetrator or they'll become the submissive, invisible person that repeats.
Boys who see physical violence being used against a parent have a 77% chance of becoming an abuser. For girls, it is as high as 68%. Linda Oberhaus, Executive Director of the Spring of Tampa Bay, fully understands the repercussions of verbal abuse and the role it plays in the cycle of violence. The Spring's newest awareness campaign deals with this very issue. For Oberhaus, letting women and men know about the damaging effects of verbal abuse is key.
Oftentimes victims, they don't identify themselves as being in a domestic violence situation if they're not physically hurt.
It began with harsh words, then insults, an angry argument, then a punch or a twist of the arm. What will it be next time? Will you survive a next time?
When we did the campaign, we really wanted to get the message out to victims in the community that a person doesn't necessarily have to be physically battered to feel like she's in fear of her life or feel like she needs shelter.
For most clients at the Spring, the verbal abuse had already escalated into physical violence and police intervention. It's an all too common scenario for police and other law enforcement officers. Tampa has the second highest incidence of domestic violence in the state of Florida.
Typically in these domestic violence situations, they will be removed from their family, they're removed from any financial support, so they feel like they have nothing. And they get to the point where through not only the physical abuse, but the verbal abuse that precipitates it, that's where they just have a feeling that they're completely worthless and they deserve what they're getting.
Chief Castor remembers the many trips she and fellow officers made to deliver domestic violence victims to safety at the Spring.
And they will tell you that it saved their life. They're at the end of their rope.
For any person in need of safety and shelter from an abusive relationship, there is a place to turn: the Spring of Tampa Bay.
Our mission at the Spring is to prevent, to protect, and to change. And that's to prevent domestic violence, to protect victims, and to promote change in lives, families, and communities. And essentially what we try to do first and foremost is to get families safe, and then secondly, to give back to them whatever has been taken from them. They may have lost their job, they may have lost their children, they may have lost their self-esteem, they may have lost their home. There are a number of things that these victims have lost, and the spring is just really an avenue for them to restore all of those things that they've lost as a result of the violence.
Natalia had never heard of the spring prior to calling the police to report that her husband had physically abused her in front of her infant daughter.
My baby gets sick. At night, about 10 o'clock, I asked him to go to the hospital in the emergency room, and he started hitting me on my head while I was holding my baby.
As they do with so many victims, the police sent Natalia to the spring to begin her journey to freedom. Natalia took full advantage of the continuum of the spring services available to her. Thanks to the spring, she now lives comfortably with her baby daughter in transitional housing provided at low cost to her as she pursues her education. Her daughter is also cared for during the day there while Natalia attends school. For Natalia, the spring has allowed her to take back her life.
I don't have any family here, no close friends. I didn't have place to go. I was on the street if there is no place like spring.
The 24-hour crisis line, 247-SAFE, is often the first step that victims take on their road to recovery. At that point, they may seek refuge at the Springs Emergency Shelter. 2/3 of shelter residents are children, which is why it is so essential that the cycle of violence be broken for them too. The Spring offers programs in the schools and the community to that effect. The Springs Juvenile Intervention Program is for young people between the ages of 10 and 17. Love Shouldn't Hurt focuses on prevention in local middle and high schools so that students learn about acceptable behavior in dating relationships.
Look, stop, okay?
The Spring also actively participates in preventing young people from becoming abusers themselves. The Spring's Peace in Action program provides intervention to juvenile offenders who oftentimes have been victims of abuse themselves. The Spring's priority is to break the cycle of violence, so critical with these young people who have already been arrested and labeled as abusers. The Spring is sensitive to the enormity of breaking the cycle of violence and recognizes the need for support during this transition. It offers outreach programs in Tampa and Plant City where groups meet weekly in English and Spanish. In this supportive environment, women work together toward empowerment, breaking the cycle of violence and making good choices for themselves and their families. The reality of domestic violence in Hillsborough County is not a pretty picture. This county has the second highest rate of domestic violence in Florida and the highest rate for juvenile offenders. Thus, the Spring has a monumental challenge, one it cannot do without community support.
I think it's important for the community to recognize that even though the Spring does incredible work, the Spring couldn't operate without the financial support of the community. We rely heavily on community support. About half of our income comes from individuals in the community who support our mission here at the Spring. And so without that, the program really wouldn't be possible, and we just wouldn't have a safe place for victims to be here in Hillsborough County. The Spring's the only certified domestic violence center in this county, providing a safe haven for victims.
We are all in this together because it really does take a community to break the vicious cycle of abuse. Love should never hurt. We've made great strides, but there is still so much work to be done. But the Spring cannot do it alone. Do your part to break this cycle by continuing to care, by supporting the Spring of Tampa Bay.
For the past 37 years, SCORE has helped thousands of Hillsborough residents realize their life's dream of owning their own small business. At one time, these successful small business owners took their first steps through these doors and into the world of SCORE.
It's a separate issue, which you're going to have to independently manage somehow. It's a risk.
SCORE's mission is to provide professional guidance and information accessible to all to maximize the success of America's existing and emerging small businesses. If you're just thinking about going into business, you will get the help you need navigating the process with sound solutions, mentorship, and counseling. These same services are made available to persons who are already running a small business and may just want some help along the way. Every month, SCORE offers seminars such as Business Law 101, Going into Business for Yourself, Understanding Business Contracts, and Preparing Your Business Plan during the day, evenings, and on Saturdays. Because SCORE is sponsored by the Small Business Administration and works closely with local government services sponsored by the city and county, there is no cost to the client for counseling and a nominal fee to attend seminars. The client not only has the advantage of having personal interaction with seasoned business professionals, the SCORE client also has an up-to-date library at their disposal. Books, magazines, DVDs, and software programs can be utilized to help the small business owner in every aspect of their startup operation. The SCORE office also provides a computer for internet access, website information, and any online resources that a client could need. You can also just walk in and pick up one of hundreds of our brochures that we have carefully selected to help guide you through your business needs.
There is a list.
Tampa SCORE also wants to invite all retired executives to join us in our mission to help Tampa Bay small business owners. If you are interested in joining, just click on our website, call our phone number, or come to our general meetings, which are held on the fourth Thursday of every month. The offices of SCORE are located at 7402 North Corporate Square, Building 400, Suite 425. You can call the SCORE offices at 813-988-1435 or 813-914-4027. Our website address is www.tampascore.org.